Okay, well, here we are. We're back again for a story, a bit quicker than I thought. As you can see, the fire is going, so we're back to story time with Grandad around the fire. It's not been a month since my last one, which it was going to be, and partly where I'm going to do this story now is watching the news, getting rather depressing with the rubbish that's going on out there, the mindless violence that's going on, and giving the police, particularly at the moment, a rather hard time. If they were protesters, then yes, it's a sort of a shame if that's how protesting's gone. It's just been hijacked by people wanting to cause a load of grief. So I thought I would do a story which my children loved, so to try and raise spirits, as it were, for all those people, but also for Freddie, Thomas, Joshua and Jacob, your mum and dad, they used to enjoy this particular story. It's one of their favourites. It's rather appropriate. It is called Cops and Robbers, and it is by Janet and Allan Ahlberg. It was one of their favourite stories. It's fairly quick, but hopefully it'll lift a few spirits, and here we go. Right. So here are the cops of London town, hard-working, brave and true. They drink their tea, stay up till 3, and they take good care of you. And here are the robbers of London town, with crowbars and skeleton keys. They prowl and creep whilst you're asleep, and take whatever they please. Ho ho for the robbers, the cops and the robbers, ho ho. Now, the worst of the robbers, as most of us know, is a dreadful Grabber Dan. His voice is gruff and he's pinched enough stuff to fill a furniture van. And his mates in the gang are Snatcher Jack, Babyface Billy the Bag, Pegleg Horace, Fingers Morris, and the villainous Grandma Swag. Ho ho for the robbers, the cops and the robbers, ho ho. Now this dreadful snatching, pilfering bunch would rob a baby of his lunch. The sneaking, creeping, fingering lot would burgle a burglar, like as not. This peg-legged, baby-faced, villainous crew would pick the pocket of a kangaroo. But now we hear there's worse to come, for the robbers are planning, the scallywag scum, to make a haul on Christmas Eve of all the toys that they can thieve, and like crooked Santas they'll creep about, pinching presents, not giving them out. Ho ho for the robbers, the cops and the robbers, ho ho. But the best of the cops, by common consent, was upstanding Officer Pugh. He can run like a hare, fight like a bear, and he's good at crosswords too. So on Christmas Eve, when the troubles began, the station sergeant said, "The thing to do is send for Pugh. You'll get 'em, alive or dead." "Listen, Pugh," said the sergeant, "the problem is this. There's toys going missing galore, and from size of mob we suspect it's from the size of the job we suspect it's a mob. What they need is a strong arm of the law. Ho ho for the robbers, the cops and the robbers, ho ho." Now meanwhile, outside on the gloomy street, the strong arm of the robbers was working a treat, and the strong leg too and the beady eye keeping watch for passers-by. In at the windows, down in through the doors, down the chimneys and under the floors, through silent rooms the robbers crept, whilst in the beds the children slept, dreaming of Santa Claus and snow. And what they get from Uncle Joe, they didn't know that Uncle Morris was robbing them, and Uncle Horace. Ho ho for the robbers, the cops and the robbers, ho ho. Now the lookout man was Snatcher Jack. He stood in a doorway yawning, but when Officer Pugh came into view, Jack saw him and whistled a warning. Now Grandma Swag, when the warning came, was pushing a pram up the road. It was piled high with loot, all stolen to boot. It was a thoroughly villainous load. "Hello, hello," said Officer Pugh. "Now then, what's going on here?" "Not much, young man," said the criminal Gran. "We're just having a robbery here. Ho ho for the robbers, the cops and the robbers, ho ho." Now before Officer Pugh could unravel this clue, the robbers were on him like beasts from a zoo. They knocked off his helmet and rumpled his tie, trod on his truncheon and kicked mud in his eye, pulled his ears and tickled his feet, and threw half of his clothes all over the street. They punched and pummeled him and wham bam slam, and they even ran over him with the pram. Give up, the robbers cried as they sat on the officer side by side. "We've got you outnumbered, 5 to 1, because in the confusion Grandma had gone. But Officer Pugh just shook his head. "We've hardly started, boys," he said, and he laughed a laugh and grinned a grin. "Sitting comfortably, are you? Then I'll begin." Now with a sudden leap he bounded free and handcuffed Horace to a nearby tree. He tied Morris up in an empty sack and he beat the daylights out of Jack. "Help!" shouted Billy. "This can't be fair. That Pugh's not human, he fights like a bear. My mother was right, crime does not pay." And with these words he fainted away. Now Grabber Dan was the last to cop it, Grandma, of course, having chosen to hop it. Dan tried to hide, but the officer sought him. Dan tried to run, but the officer caught him. Dan went to lift Pugh over his head, but the officer, he lifted Dan instead, and swung him whirled him round, and he swung him, whoosh, across the road and into a bush. And down he tumbled, skidded and rolled. He hit a concrete gnome and was knocked out cold. Pugh dusted his hands and sat on a wall, as a little snow had begun to fall. He looked at the gnome and patted his head. "You could get a medal for this," he said. "Ho, ho for the robbers, the cops and the robbers, ho, ho." Now here are the cops of London town, in the station at 2:30. They drink their beer and raise a cheer to upstanding Officer Pugh. And here are the robbers of London town, in cells all gloomy and grim. Let us out, let us out. Not guilty, they shout, and "It wasn't me, it was him." Ho, ho for the robbers, the cops and the robbers, ho, ho. And the toys, well, they were taken back by a Santa Claus copper with a Santa Claus sack. And whilst the rest of the force searched day and night for an elderly lady of medium height, with a fondness for earrings and red fox furs and a habit of taking what was not hers. She usually carried a sizable bag. Her name, of course, was Grandma Swag. Ho, ho for the robbers, the cops and the robbers, ho, ho. And that's that. Hope you enjoyed it. It's an extra story to what I was planning on doing. It just felt right to do something. So enjoy the story. If you are in the old bill and you've got young children, please feel free to share it with them. I hope you do. And keep smiling, stay safe. Thank you.